A man mocked a blind veteran at a downtown diner, and when the nearby bikers saw this, they stepped in and confronted him. The bikers defended the blind veteran, leaving everyone around completely shocked. Marcus Thompson sat at the corner booth of Jerry's diner, his white cane resting against the table. The breakfast rush filled the place with noise, dishes clattering, conversations overlapping, the smell of coffee and bacon thick in the air. Marcus ordered his usual eggs, toast, black coffee. The waitress Linda knew him well. She'd worked there for 15 years, and had seen Marcus come in every Saturday morning for the past 3. A young man in an expensive suit entered the diner, talking loudly on his phone. Derek Hutchins worked for a tech startup downtown, and carried himself like he owned every room he walked into. He scanned for a seat, spotted the booth next to Marcus, and slid in without looking up from his phone call. Before we continue, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. And don't forget to like, share and subscribe to The Ride for Justice. Marcus reached for his coffee cup, his hand searching the table carefully. His fingers found the warm ceramic, and he lifted it to his lips. Derek watched this with visible irritation, his phone call ending just as Marcus accidentally knocked his fork off the table. The metallic clatter made several people turn their heads. "Can't you be more careful?" Derek snapped, loud enough for half the diner to hear. "Some of us are trying to enjoy our breakfast." Marcus turned his head toward the voice. "I apologize. I didn't mean to disturb you." "Yeah, well maybe you should stay home if you can't handle being in public." Derek's voice dripped with contempt. He made no effort to lower his volume. Linda approached to pick up the fork, her face flushed with anger. "That's uncalled for, sir." "I'm just saying what everyone's thinking," Derek replied, leaning back in his booth. "It's Saturday morning, people want to relax, not watch someone fumble around." The diner went quiet. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. The cook paused at the grill. Everyone heard what Derek said, and everyone knew Marcus was a veteran who'd lost his sight serving overseas. The American gag pin on Marcus's jacket made that clear enough. Outside, 3 motorcycles pulled into the parking lot. The rumble of their engines cut through the morning air. Jake, Tommy and Carlos had been riding together for 20 years. They weren't in a gang, just friends who loved their bikes and rode every weekend. They wore leather jackets with patches from various veteran organizations and charity rides they'd participated in over the years. Jake pulled off his helmet and stretched. "Jerry's is packed today." "Good," Tommy said. "I'm starving." They walked toward the entrance, their boots heavy on the pavement. Through the window they could see the crowded diner, but they couldn't yet hear what was happening inside. Derek wasn't finished. He called Linda back over and pointed at Marcus. "Actually, I'd like to move to a different table. I don't want to sit next to him." Marcus's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. His hands rested flat on the table, steady despite the humiliation washing over him. He'd dealt with ignorance before, but it never got easier. "All our tables are full, sir," Linda said, her voice strained. "You'll need to wait, or stay where you are." "This is ridiculous," Derek said. He stood up and walked over to Marcus's booth, standing directly beside the table. "Hey buddy, you mind switching seats with me? I'm sure you can't tell the difference anyway." Several customers gasped. An elderly couple in the booth across from Marcus looked horrified. A mother covered her young daughter's ears, though the child was too young to understand what was happening. Marcus remained calm. "I'm comfortable where I am, thank you." "Of course you are. You probably can't even see how pathetic this place is." Derek laughed, looking around for support. A few people stared at their plates, uncomfortable but silent. "What are you? Some kind of charity case? Let me guess, living off disability checks while the rest of us work for a living." That's when the diner door opened. Jake entered first, followed by Tommy and Carlos. They were laughing about something from their ride, but the laughter died the moment they sensed the atmosphere. The tension was thick to choke on. Jake's eyes swept the room and landed on Derek, who was still standing over Marcus's table. He saw Marcus's white cane, the flag pin, the way Marcus sat with military-perfect posture despite being verbally assaulted. "You see that?" Jake murmured to Tommy. "Yeah, I see it," Derek continued, oblivious to the bikers entering behind him. "I pay taxes so people like you can sit around all day. The least you could do is stay out of everyone's way." Marcus's hands clenched into fists, but his voice remained level. "I served in Afghanistan. I lost my sight in an IED explosion while pulling 2 of my men from a burning vehicle. I don't need to justify my existence to you." "Oh, here we go," Derek rolled his eyes. The hero speech. Everyone's a hero these days. Jake moved forward. His boots made deliberate sounds on the tile floor, slow, measured steps that commanded attention. He was a big man, over 6 feet tall, with arms built from years of manual labor and motorcycle mateship. His face was weathered, scarred along the left cheek from a bike accident years ago. "Is there a problem here?" Jake's voice was quiet, but it carried weight. Derek turned, sizing up the biker. He saw the leather jacket, the patches, the two friends standing behind Jake. For a moment, Derek's confidence wavered, but only for a moment. No problem. Just having a conversation with this gentleman about public courtesy. Didn't sound like a conversation to me, Tommy said. He was shorter than Jake, but stockier, with a grey beard and kind eyes that had gone cold. Sounded like harassment. Derek straightened his tie. "Look, I don't want any trouble. I'm just trying to have breakfast." "Then sit down and eat," Carlos added. He was the youngest of the three bikers, barely 40, with tattoos covering both arms. One tattoo was particularly visible, a tribute to his brother, who died in Iraq. "I would, but I'm trying to get a different table away from a veteran?" Jake interrupted. "A blind veteran who served his country?" The diner was completely silent now. Even the cook had come out from the kitchen, standing in the doorway with his arms crossed. Linda stood behind the counter, her hand near the phone, ready to call the hose if needed. Derek's face reddened. "You don't know what you're talking about. You weren't here." "He's been making a scene." He knocked over a fork, a woman's voice said. The elderly lady from across the aisle had found her courage. "That's all he did. You're the one making a scene." Other customers murmured agreement. The mother with the young daughter nodded. A construction worker in paint-stained jeans stood up from his booth, adding his silent support to the growing opposition. Derek realized he was outnumbered. "This is insane. You people are crazy." "Sit down," Jake said again. It wasn't a suggestion this time. Derek looked at the three bikers blocking his path to the door. He glanced at Marcus, who sat quietly, his expression unreadable. The entire diner watched and waited. "You can't tell me what to do," Derek said, but his voice had lost its edge. "I have rights." "So does he," Jake pointed at Marcus. "And one of those rights is to eat breakfast without being harassed by someone who's never sacrificed anything for anyone but himself." Tommy stepped closer. "You want to know about living off the system? My brother came back from Vietnam with PTSD. Took him 30 years to get the help he needed. He worked 2 jobs while fighting the VA for benefits. Don't talk about things you don't understand." Carlos moved to Marcus's table and extended his hand. "Sir, I'm Carlos. Would you mind if we joined you?" Marcus's face showed surprise, then relief. He reached out, and Carlos guided his hand to complete the handshake. "I'd appreciate the company." The three bikers slid into the booth across from Marcus, effectively surrounding him with protection. Derek stood there, frozen between humiliation and anger. "You should leave," Jake said, "before you embarrass yourself further." "I haven't even ordered yet," Derek protested. "Then order and sit somewhere else," Linda called from behind the counter. "Actually, on second thought, we reserve the right to refuse service. Get out." The construction worker stood up fully now, all 6'4" of him. "You heard the lady." Derek's face went from red to purple. "Fine. This place is a dump anyway." He stormed toward the door, shouldering past a couple who'd just entered. As he grabbed the handle, he turned back one last time. "You'll regret this." "Doubt it," Jake said calmly. The door slammed shut. Through the window, everyone watched Derek stomp to his luxury sedan, get in, and peel out of the parking lot with an angry squeal of tires. Slowly, the diner came back to life. Conversations resumed. The cook returned to the grill. Linda brought coffee to the biker's table without being asked. "Thank you," Marcus said quietly. "You didn't have to do that." "Yes, we did," Tommy replied. "We've all been in situations where someone needed to step up. Today was our turn." Marcus nodded. His hands were steadier now, wrapped around his coffee cup. "I'm Marcus Thompson. Served 8 years. Army infantry." Jake Martinez. Marines. 2 tours in Iraq. Tommy Chen. Navy. Gulf War. Carlos Rodriguez. "My brother served, not me. But I learned from him what service means." They talked for a while about service, about coming home, about the challenges of adjusting to civilian life. Marcus shared his story, the IED, the explosion, waking up in a hospital in Germany with his world gone dark, the months of rehabilitation, learning to navigate without sight, the struggle to maintain independence. "The hardest part isn't the darkness," Marcus said. "It's people like him." The ones who see the cane and immediately think you're helpless or looking for pity. People fear what they don't understand, Jake said. And instead of asking questions or showing compassion, they lash out. Linda brought their food. She placed Marcus's plate down carefully and described where everything was positioned. Eggs at 9 o'clock, toast at 3 o'clock, bacon at 6. Marcus smiled. She'd been doing that for him for years. The elderly woman from across the aisle approached their table. I want to apologize. I should have said something sooner. We all should have. You spoke up when it mattered, Marcus said. That's what counts. She patted his shoulder and returned to her husband. The construction worker raised his coffee cup in a silent toast. The mother with the young daughter taught her child to wave at Marcus, and when the little girl died, Linda described it to him so he could wave back. But the peace didn't last long. Through the window, Jake saw Derek's car pull back into the parking lot. This time, he wasn't alone. 2 more cars pulled in behind Derek's sedan. Out stepped 4 men, all dressed similarly to Derek in business casual attire. They gathered around Derek's car, and he pointed at the diner while talking animatedly. One of the men pulled out his phone and started recording. We've got company, Jake said quietly. Tommy glanced over his shoulder. Friends of his? Looks like it. Carlos stood up. Should we call the police? Let's see what they want first, Jake said. Could be they're just here to pick him up. But that wasn't what happened. The group of 5 men walked toward the diner entrance in a formation that suggested they'd come for confrontation, not mediation. Derek led the way, his confidence restored by the presence his back up. The door opened, and Derek entered first. Thought you could intimidate me? I brought witnesses. One of the other men, a tall guy with styled hair and a Bluetooth earpiece, held up his phone. We're recording everything. If you threaten my colleague again, we'll have evidence for the hose. Jake remained seated. Nobody threatened anyone. We simply asked him to leave after he harassed a disabled veteran. That's not how Derek described it, another man said. This one was shorter, stockier, with gym muscles that strained against his shirt. He said you threatened physical violence. Marcus spoke up. That's not true. They were respectful throughout. Of course you'd defend them, Derek sneered. You're probably all friends. This was probably staged. The construction worker stood up again. I was here. I saw everything. Your friend was the problem. I saw it too, the elderly woman added. He was cruel and disrespectful. The man with the phone turned the camera toward them. Can you state your names for the record? Put that thing away, Linda said, coming out from behind the counter. You can't film people without their permission. Actually, in public spaces, this is a private business, she interrupted. Which means I can ask you to leave. All of you. Derek's friend, with the gym muscles, stepped forward. We're not leaving until we get an apology. Derek was humiliated. You created a hostile environment. Tommy laughed without humor. Your friend created the hostile environment when he mocked a blind veteran. Alleged veteran, Derek corrected. How do we even know he really served? Lots of people lie about military service. That statement changed the atmosphere completely. The construction worker moved closer. 2 other customers stood up. Even the elderly man, who had to be in his 80s, rose to his feet. You want proof? Marcus reached into his jacket pocket. His hands moved with practiced precision, pulling out his wallet. He opened it and slid out his military ID, his VA card, and a photo. This was taken before the explosion. That's me, with my unit in Kandahar. He held them out. Linda took them and placed them on the table where everyone could see. The photo showed Marcus in full combat gear, squinting against the desert sun, his arm around a fellow soldier. He looked younger, happier, whole. Derek barely glanced at them. Those could be fake. Get out, Jake said. His voice was still quiet, but there was steel in it now. All of you. Now. The man with the phone moved closer, still recording. This is harassment. You're preventing customers from... Carlos stood up suddenly, moving between the camera and Marcus. Turn that off. Or what? The gym muscle friend moved forward. You'll assault us? Go ahead. We're recording. Jake and Tommy stood up as well. The 3 bikers formed a wall between Marcus and Derek's group. The tension was suffocating. The cook came out of the kitchen again, this time carrying a phone of his own. I've called the police, he announced. They'll be here in 5 minutes. Derek's expression flickered with uncertainty, but the man with the phone, whose name was Brett, pushed forward. Perfect. When they arrive, we'll show them this footage of how we were threatened. You weren't threatened, the construction worker said, moving to stand beside the bikers. But keep pushing, and that might change. More customers stood up. a teenager who'd been eating with his father, a nurse in scrubs who'd stopped in for coffee, a UPS driver still in uniform. They formed a loose circle around Derek Sue, not threatening but present, united in their silent support of Marcus. Brett kept recording, panning his phone across the crowd. "You're all witnesses to this mob mentality. Look at how they're intimidating us." "Nobody's intimidating you," Linda said. "You're free to leave any time." "We have a right to be here," Derek insisted. "We haven't broken any laws." "Neither had Marcus until you decided to harass him," Jake replied. One of Derek's other friends, who'd been quiet until now, spoke up. "Look, maybe we can all calm down. Derek, maybe you overreacted." "Don't," Derek cut him off. "Don't side with them. You're supposed to be my friend." The friend, his name was Paul, looked uncomfortable. "I am your friend. That's why I'm telling you this is getting out of hand. The police are coming. Do you really want to explain to them why you mocked a blind veteran?" "I didn't mock him. I made a legitimate complaint about—" "I heard you," Paul interrupted. "We all heard you on the phone. You called me bragging about putting some disabled guy in his place. That's why we came. We thought you were joking, thought you had exaggerated, but now I see you actually did this." The other two friends exchanged glances. The gym muscle guy lowered his arms. Brett slowly lowered his phone. Derek stared at Paul, betrayed. "You're turning on me?" "I'm not turning on you. I'm trying to keep you from making this worse." Paul looked at Marcus. "Sir, I apologize for my friend's behavior. He was out of line." Marcus nodded. "Apology accepted." "That's not enough," Derek snapped. "Paul, what are you doing?" "The right thing, apparently." Paul turned to leave. "You coming or staying?" The gym muscle guy followed Paul. Then the fourth friend, Brett, hesitated, looking at his phone. Then at Derek, then at the crowd of people staring at him with disapproval. He pocketed his phone and left too. Derek stood alone, surrounded by people who'd witnessed his cruelty. His face went through several emotions: anger, embarrassment, defiance, and finally resignation. "Fine," he said. "I'll leave. But this isn't over." "Yeah, it is," Tommy said. "Walk away and don't come back." Derek headed for the door, but before he could reach it, it opened from the outside. Two police officers entered, a tall black officer named Henderson, and his partner, a shorter Hispanic woman named Officer Ramirez. "Someone called about a disturbance?" Officer Henderson asked. Everyone started talking at once. The officers raised their hands for quiet, and Henderson pointed at Linda. "Ma'am, you're the owner." "Manager," she said. "There was an incident involving a customer harassing another customer. The situation escalated when he returned with friends." Officer Ramirez pulled out a notepad. "Who was harassed?" Marcus identified himself. "I'm the one he targeted initially." Officer Henderson recognized the white cane immediately, and his expression softened. "Can you tell me what happened, sir?" Marcus recounted the story calmly, objectively, without embellishment. He described Derek's comments, the mocking tone, the suggestion that he stay home. Other customers corroborated the story. The elderly woman, the construction worker, Linda, they all confirmed Marcus's version of events. "And who are you?" Officer Ramirez asked Derek. "Derek Hutchins. And I want to file a complaint. These men," he pointed at the bikers, "threatened me." "How did they threaten you?" Officer Henderson asked. Derek hesitated. They said I should leave. They blocked my way." "Did they touch you? Make any threatening gestures? Use threatening language?" "They intimidated me with their presence." Officer Ramirez looked at Jake. "Sir, what's your version?" Jake explained calmly. The officers listened, took notes, and spoke quietly to each other. They asked to see Brett's video, but Brett had already deleted it after realizing it would work against Derek, not for Fim. Officer Henderson addressed the crowd. "From what I'm hearing, we have multiple witnesses confirming that Mr. Hutchins initiated the confrontation by harassing a disabled veteran. The bikers intervened verbally, and Mr. Hutchins left, then returned with friends, escalating the situation." "That's not," Derek started. "I'm not finished," Henderson said firmly. "The manager has asked you to leave her establishment. You need to comply with that request now, or you'll be charged with trespassing." "This is discrimination," Derek protested. "No," Officer Ramirez said. "Discrimination would be refusing service based on your race, religion, or protected class status. Being removed for harassing another customer is not discrimination, it's consequences." Derek looked around for support, but his friends had already left. Brett stood by his car outside, watching through the window but making no move to come back inside. "Fine, Derek said. I'm leaving, but I'm going to report all of you. I have connections. I know people who will tell you the same thing we're telling you, Officer Henderson interrupted. You were wrong. Accept it and move on. Derek walked out, his shoulders tight with anger. Through the window, everyone watched him get into his car. Brett and the others had already driven away. Derek sat there for a moment, his hands on the steering wheel, then finally started the engine and left. Officer Ramirez turned to Marcus. Sir, do you want to press charges? Verbal harassment can constitute disorderly conduct. Marcus considered it. No, I just want to finish my breakfast in peace. Understandable, but if he comes back or contacts you, call us immediately. She handed Marcus a card, then realized her mistake. Sorry, I'll give this to your friend. She handed the card to Jake, who thanked her. The officers took statements from several witnesses, gave Linda an incident number for her records, and advised everyone to call if Derek returned. After they left, the diner slowly returned to normal. Customers went back to their meals. The cook returned to the grill. But there was a difference now. A sense of community, of having stood together against joyists. Linda refilled everyone's coffee for free. On the house, she announced. Thank you all for standing up. The construction worker approached Marcus's table. Name's Frank. I'm sorry I didn't speak up sooner. You spoke up when it counted, Marcus said, repeating what he'd told the elderly woman earlier. Frank sat down in the booth next to them. I was overseas too. Army, Desert Storm. I've seen guys come back with injuries, seen how people treat them. It makes me sick. Other veterans in the diner identified themselves. The elderly man had served in Korea. The UPS driver was a Navy veteran. The teenager's father was a Marine. They gathered around Marcus's table, sharing stories, towing respect, building connections. Jake watched this happen and felt something shift. He turned to Tommy and Carlos. We should do something. This keeps happening. Veterans getting disrespected, harassed and ignored. We have bikes, we have time, and we have a network. What are you thinking? Tommy asked. I'm thinking we start something. A group that shows up when veterans need support. We hear about situations like this, we respond. Carlos nodded slowly, like an escort service, but for protection and solidarity. Exactly, Jake said. We've got veteran friends all over the state, bikers who'd jump at the chance to do something meaningful. The idea took root quickly. They started making calls right there in the diner. Within an hour, they'd contacted a dozen other riders, all veterans or veteran supporters, all interested in forming what Jake called the Shield, a volunteer organization dedicated to supporting veterans who faced harassment or discrimination. Marcus listened to this planning with growing emotion. You're doing this because of what happened today. We're doing this because it should have existed already, Jake said. You shouldn't have had to endure that alone. None of you should. The elderly woman overheard and approached their table again. My husband and I want to help. We can't ride motorcycles, but we can do other things. Fundraising, awareness, whatever you need. Linda offered the diner as a meeting place. Frank volunteered to help with organization and logistics, drawing on his construction management experience. The nurse offered medical coordination for veterans who might need health support during events. The story should have ended there, with community coming together, with new friendships formed, with the creation of something positive from something negative. But Derek wasn't finished. 3 days later, Jake received a call from his employer. Jake, we need to talk. There's been a complaint filed against you. What kind of complaint? Harassment. A man named Derek Hutchins claims you and your friends threatened him at a diner. He's saying he's traumatized, that he's afraid to go out in public now. He's demanding we take action, or he'll go to the media. Jake explained the situation, told his employer exactly what happened, but the company was nervous. Bad publicity could hurt business. They put Jake on administrative leave pending investigation. Tommy and Carlos faced similar problems. Derek had identified all 3 bikers and filed complaints with their employers, their apartment complexes, even their motorcycle club. He'd created social media accounts detailing his version of events, painting himself as a victim of veteran mob violence. The posts started spreading. People who hadn't been there, who didn't know the truth, began commenting. Some supported Derek. Others questioned why bikers were allowed to intimidate people. The story got picked up by a local news blog with a misleading headline. Biker gang threatens man for complaining about service. Marcus heard about this from Linda, who read him the article. He was furious. They're lying. Derek is lying. I know, Linda said. We all know. But lies spread faster than truth. Marcus made a decision. He'd been private about his service, his injuries, his struggles. But if Derek was going to weaponize a false narrative, Marcus needed to counter it with truth. He reached out to the local news station, the legitimate one, not the blog, and offered an interview. The station, smelling a good story, sent a reporter to his apartment. Marcus told everything. He showed his military records, his medals, his discharge papers. He described that morning in detail, with Linda and several other diner customers present to verify his account. The reporter was thorough, professional, and visibly moved by Marcus's story. The interview aired 2 days later. Marcus's face appeared on screen, his white cane visible, his service record displayed. He spoke calmly about Derek's harassment, about the bikers who defended him, about the community that came together. Those men didn't threaten anyone, Marcus said directly into the camera. They stood up for someone who couldn't see the contempt on his attacker's face, but could hear it in every word. They represent what service means. Putting others before yourself, stepping up when it's difficult, defending those who need defending. The reporter interviewed Jake, Tommy, and Carlos as well. They explained the Shield, their vision for supporting veterans. They showed their own service records, their decades of community involvement, their charity work. The story went viral, but in the opposite direction Derek intended. Comments flooded in supporting Marcus and the bikers. Derek's employer saw the story, his friends saw it, his family saw it. Derek posted a response, trying to maintain his victim narrative, but it was too late. The evidence was overwhelming. Multiple witnesses, video of the police interaction, the testimony of a decorated veteran, all of it contradicted Derek's claims. His employer called him in. The tech startup prided itself on progressive values and community involvement. Having an employee exposed for mocking a disabled veteran was a public relations nightmare. They didn't fire Derek, that would have opened them to lawsuits, but they made his position untenable. Demotion, transfer to a different department, mandatory sensitivity training. Derek's complaints against Jake, Tommy, and Carlos were dismissed. Their employers reinstated them with apologies. The motorcycle club issued a statement supporting their members and offering organizational backing for the Shield. But the biggest surprise came from an unexpected source. 2 weeks after the incident, Marcus received a phone call. The voice on the other end was hesitant, ashamed. "Mr. Thompson, this is Paul. I was one of the people with Derek at the diner that day." Marcus remembered. Paul was the one who'd apologized, who'd tried to get Derek to leave. "I've been thinking about that morning non-stop," Paul continued. "About what Derek said, about how we all just stood by at first. I was raised better than that. My grandfather served in World War II. He would have been ashamed of me." "You spoke up eventually," Marcus said. "That took courage." "Not enough courage. Not fast enough." Paul replied. "I want to do better. I saw the news story about the Shield. I want to volunteer. I can't ride a motorcycle, but I can help in other ways. Whatever you need." Marcus gave him Jake's contact information. Paul became one of the first non-veteran volunteers, helping with social media, fundraising, and event coordination. Others followed. The elderly couple from the diner donated money for the Shield's startup costs. The construction worker Frank recruited his entire crew to help build a headquarters, a donated storefront that they converted into an office and headspace. The nurse organized a healthcare network of medical professionals willing to provide discounted or free services to veterans. The Shield's first official event was a community breakfast at Jerry's Diner. They invited local veterans, their families, and supporters. Over 200 people showed up. The small diner couldn't hold them all, so they set up tables in the parking lot. Linda coordinated with other local restaurants to provide food. Local news covered the event. The mayor attended and gave a speech about community values and supporting those who served. Jake, Tommy, and Carlos were interviewed again, explaining how one negative incident had sparked something positive. Marcus was the guest of honor. He sat at the same booth where Derek had mocked him, but this time he was surrounded by friends, supporters, and fellow veterans. The booth became a symbol, a physical representation of how a place of humiliation had transformed into a place of honor. During the event, a young woman approached Marcus. "Mr. Thompson, I'm Rebecca. I work for Derek's company. Well, I used to. I quit after seeing how they handled this situation." "Why did you quit?" Marcus asked. "Because they cared more about public relations than doing the right thing. Derek should have been fired, not transferred. But that's not why I came over. I wanted you to know that Derek's been different since all this happened. Quieter. He's in therapy now, mandatory from the company. But I heard from someone who's still there that he's actually engaging with it. He's starting to understand what he did. Good, Marcus said simply. Do you think you'd ever forgive him? Marcus was quiet for a long moment. The sounds of the celebration surrounded them: laughter, conversation, the clink of dishes, the rumble of motorcycles in the parking lot. Finally, he spoke. Forgiveness isn't something I can give lightly. He didn't just insult me. He insulted everyone who's served, everyone who's been injured, everyone who's struggled with disabilities. But if he genuinely changes, if he learns and grows and becomes someone who stands up instead of tears down, then maybe, time will tell. Rebecca thanked him and moved on. Marcus sat back, listening to the community that had formed around him. The Shield now had over 50 active members, with chapters forming in 3 other cities. They'd already responded to 2 other incidents, a veteran being denied service at a restaurant, another being harassed at a grocery store. In both cases, the Shield showed up, provided support, and ensured the veterans were treated with respect. Jake approached the booth. Marcus, we've got someone here who wants to meet you. A young man approached, early 20s, nervous. Mr. Thompson, I'm Justin. I ship out for basic training next month. Army infantry. I wanted to meet you before I left. Your story, it reminded me why I enlisted. To stand for something, to be part of something bigger. Marcus shook his hand. Serve with honor, Justin, and remember the uniform doesn't end when you take it off. What you do after service matters just as much as what you do during. I'll remember, sir. As the event continued, Marcus reflected on how dramatically things had changed. One act of cruelty had revealed the best in people. It had exposed the worst too, but ultimately, good had prevailed. The community had some solidarity over silence. They'd chosen action over indifference. Late in the afternoon, as the crowd began to thin, Marcus heard familiar footsteps approaching. Jake, Tommy, and Carlos sat down at his booth one more time. We've been talking, Jake said. The Shield is growing faster than we expected. We need someone to be the face of it, someone who understands what we're fighting for on a personal level. We want you to be our president, Tommy added. To lead this thing and help us expand it nationwide. Marcus hadn't expected this. I'm blind. How can I lead? You're not blind, Carlos said. You see more clearly than most people ever will. You see what matters. You see what's right. That's the kind of vision we need. Marcus felt tears forming. He let them come, unashamed. These men had stood up for him when he needed it most. Now they were trusting him to stand for others. I accept, he said. On one condition. This isn't about me, it's about all of us. Every veteran who's been disrespected, overlooked, or forgotten, we stand for them. Deal, Jake said. They shook hands, all 4 of them, and in that moment, something solidified. The Shield wasn't just an organization, it was a movement. It was proof that one person's courage to confront injustice could ripple outward, creating waves of positive change. The sun set over Jerry's diner that evening, casting long shadows across the parking lot where motorcycles were parked in neat rows. Inside, Marcus sat with his new brothers, planning the future. Outside, people left the celebration carrying with them a renewed faith in community and a commitment to stand up when they witnessed injustice. Derek never returned to the diner. Reports suggested he eventually left the city, taking a job somewhere else, starting over. Maybe he learned from the experience, maybe he didn't. But his legacy, unintentionally, was the Shield, an organization built from the ashes of his cruelty. Marcus Thompson, the blind veteran who'd sat quietly enduring mockery, became a voice for thousands. He gave speeches, organized events, and built coalitions. He turned his pain into purpose. And every Saturday morning, he still went to Jerry's diner. He still sat in the same booth. But now, he was never alone.